Have you ever walked into a room full of strangers and felt an inexplicable pull toward one particular person, as if you've known them your entire life? Or perhaps you found yourself standing in a place you've never visited before, yet every corner, every shadow feels hauntingly familiar, like echoes from a dream you can't quite remember. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. What if I told you that these moments of mysterious recognition aren't random coincidences or tricks of your imagination, but actually glimpses of something far more profound, something that challenges everything we think we know about memory, consciousness, and the very nature of our existence? Edgar Cayce, known as America's most documented psychic, spent decades uncovering truths that would shake the foundations of conventional thinking. Through more than 14,000 meticulously recorded readings, this remarkable man revealed something absolutely extraordinary about human consciousness, something that explains those spine-tingling moments of déjà vu and instant soul connections that we've all experienced but struggle to understand. Has this ever happened to you? You meet someone for the first time, yet within minutes of conversation, you feel like you're reconnecting with an old friend. The comfort level is immediate, the understanding profound, almost as if you're continuing a conversation that began long ago. According to Cayce's revolutionary discoveries, that's exactly what's happening. These aren't new connections at all, but ancient soul bonds trying to break through the carefully constructed barriers of our conscious minds. Here's where it gets truly fascinating, and what you're about to discover might surprise you completely. Cayce revealed that we actually do remember our past lives, but not in the way most people expect or understand. The memories aren't lost or erased. They're deliberately hidden, veiled from our conscious awareness for specific spiritual reasons that go far deeper than simple forgetfulness. Think about this for a moment. What if your soul, in its infinite wisdom, made the conscious choice to temporarily forget your previous lifetimes? What if this forgetting isn't a limitation or flaw in the cosmic system, but actually an expression of divine intelligence designed to serve your highest spiritual growth? Through his extraordinary readings, Cayce uncovered that these instant feelings of familiarity with strangers or places aren't coincidences at all. They're glimpses of past life connections desperately trying to break through our conscious barriers. These moments represent cracks in the veil, brief windows where our soul memory overpowers the forgetting mechanism that normally keeps our past lives hidden from view. But why would our souls go to such elaborate lengths to hide this information from us? Why would we choose to forget experiences that could potentially guide and inform our current life decisions? Stay with me until the end, because what Cayce discovered about the spiritual purpose behind this cosmic amnesia will completely transform how you understand your deepest fears, your unexplained talents, and those mysterious soul connections that seem to transcend time itself. The truth is far more beautiful and purposeful than you might imagine, and it reveals something profound about the intelligent design of spiritual evolution. If these insights about soul memory have opened new understanding for you, subscribe to join our community of seekers exploring the deeper mysteries of consciousness and spiritual growth. We're building something meaningful here. The year was 1923, and Edgar Cayce was about to receive information that would fundamentally challenge everything he believed about life, death, and the nature of human existence. You see, up until this point, Cayce had been conducting what he called physical readings, using his psychic abilities to diagnose medical conditions and suggest treatments. His gift was already remarkable, but it was confined to the realm of physical healing. Then came Arthur Lamers, a wealthy printer from Ohio who would forever change the trajectory of Cayce's work. Lamers had heard about Cayce's extraordinary abilities and became convinced that this sleeping prophet could access information far beyond medical diagnoses. With persistent persuasion, Lamers convinced the reluctant Cayce to explore uncharted territory, to go beyond the physical and venture into the realm of the soul itself. What emerged from that pivotal session would send shockwaves through Cayce's deeply held Christian beliefs. As he entered his characteristic trance state, expecting perhaps another medical reading, something entirely different began to flow through him. Detailed descriptions of past lives, intricate explanations of karma, and comprehensive insights into reincarnation poured forth with stunning clarity and precision. Picture the scene. Cayce, a devout Christian who had never seriously considered reincarnation, suddenly speaking with authority about multiple lifetimes, soul journeys, and the continuity of consciousness across different incarnations. The information was so specific, so detailed, and so internally consistent that it couldn't be dismissed as mere imagination or fantasy. But here's where the real transformation in understanding begins. The most shocking revelation that emerged from these readings wasn't just that we live multiple lives. It was the stunning discovery that forgetting our past lives isn't some cosmic accident or flaw in the spiritual system. This forgetting, Cayce learned, is actually a carefully orchestrated aspect of spiritual evolution, purposefully implemented by higher consciousness with precise intention and divine wisdom. Think about the profound implications of this revelation. Every moment of confusion about your purpose, every instance where you've wondered why you can't remember who you truly are at a soul level, every frustration about feeling disconnected from your deeper spiritual identity, all of this isn't evidence of a broken system. Instead, it's proof of an incredibly sophisticated design created specifically to serve your highest growth and evolution. This discovery completely reframes how we understand memory, consciousness, and personal transformation. The forgetting mechanism isn't punishment or limitation. It's actually one of the most compassionate gifts your soul could receive. It's a divine reset button that allows you to approach each lifetime with fresh perspective, unburdened by the weight of previous mistakes, traumas, or limiting beliefs that might otherwise paralyze your growth. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic and explore exactly why this spiritual amnesia is so crucial for your soul's journey. The mechanics behind this forgetting reveal something truly beautiful about the intelligence that governs our spiritual evolution, and understanding these hidden truths can completely transform how you approach your current life challenges and decisions. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me," if you're starting to see how this spiritual design might actually be working in your own life. The most remarkable evidence for this spiritual design actually comes from the most unexpected source: young children. You see, when we're born, that memory veil I mentioned isn't fully intact yet. It's more like a thin curtain rather than an impenetrable wall, which explains why children, especially those under 7 years old, often demonstrate the most extraordinary access to their soul memories. Have you ever witnessed a 3-year-old speak with startling sophistication about places they've never visited? Or perhaps you've heard a young child describe historical events with uncanny accuracy, using vocabulary and concepts that seem far beyond their developmental stage. These aren't signs of exceptional intelligence or overactive imagination. They're glimpses of soul memory, breaking through that still developing veil of forgetfulness. What's truly fascinating is how naturally this happens for children. Without any prompting or suggestion, they'll casually mention details about when they lived before, or describe people and places from what appear to be previous lifetimes. The information flows effortlessly because their conscious minds haven't yet fully learned to filter out these deeper memories. Their spiritual awareness remains relatively unobstructed by the rational barriers that adults have constructed. But here's where the transformation from natural remembering to complete forgetting begins, and it reveals something profound about how our mindset around these experiences shapes our reality. When children share these soul memories with the adults in their lives, the response is almost universally the same: dismissal. Parents, teachers, and caregivers, operating from their own conditioned beliefs about what's possible, consistently tell children that these recollections aren't real or are just imagination. Think about the hidden impact of this pattern. Every time an adult dismisses a child's past life memory, they're effectively training that young soul to suppress their natural spiritual awareness. The child learns that accessing these deeper truths isn't acceptable, isn't valued, and isn't considered real by the people they trust most. So gradually, layer by layer, they begin building their own internal barriers against soul memory. This process isn't malicious. Most adults genuinely believe they're protecting children from confusion or fantasy. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is a systematic conditioning that teaches us to disconnect from our broader spiritual identity. By the time we reach adulthood, we've become so thoroughly trained to dismiss these experiences that we rarely even notice when soul memories try to surface. The journey from natural remembering to complete amnesia typically unfolds over those crucial first 7 years of life. It's during this window that the spiritual veil gradually thickens, not through some automatic biological process, but through consistent social conditioning that teaches us to trust only what our current life experience can validate. What makes this particularly poignant is understanding that this forgetting process, while ultimately serving our spiritual evolution, often comes at the cost of temporarily losing touch with our deeper identity and purpose. The very mechanism designed to help us grow can sometimes leave us feeling disconnected and searching for meaning. Now, I want to explore something even more compelling about this process: the specific ways these soul memories actually try to communicate with us throughout our lives, and the remarkable discovery Cayce made about how our physical bodies become living libraries of past life experiences. Write in the comments, "I remember being a child like this," if you recognize these patterns from your own early memories or observations of children in your life. One of the most compelling cases that demonstrates exactly how these soul memories surface comes from Cayce's reading 2671, which involved a young boy whose life was being disrupted by terrifying recurring nightmares. Night after night, this child would wake up screaming, describing vivid scenes of drowning, of being pulled underwater, of desperate struggles against overwhelming waves. The nightmares were so intense and frequent that his parents became genuinely concerned about his psychological well-being. What makes this case so revealing is how the family initially approached these experiences. Like most parents faced with a child's recurring nightmares, they tried every conventional solution, changing his bedtime routine, avoiding scary movies, even consulting pediatricians who suggested the dreams were simply products of an overactive imagination. But nothing worked. The nightmares persisted with haunting consistency, always featuring the same terrifying details of drowning and maritime disaster. If you felt that spark of recognition as we explored these teachings together, your like tells me these insights are reaching the souls who need them most. It's a simple way to acknowledge this information touched something real within you. When Cayce conducted a reading for this troubled boy, the hidden truth behind these nightmares emerged with startling clarity. These weren't random fears or childhood anxieties. They were actual memories from a previous lifetime where the boy had died in a shipwreck. His soul carried the traumatic imprint of that drowning experience, and it was surfacing through his dreams because his young consciousness hadn't yet learned to suppress these deeper memories. The impact of this revelation was profound, not just for understanding this specific child's situation, but for recognizing how frequently past life trauma attempts to communicate with us through our current experiences. The boy's nightmares weren't psychological problems that needed to be medicated, or therapy issues that required years of treatment. They were his soul's way of processing unresolved experiences from a previous incarnation. But here's where the story takes a predictable yet heartbreaking turn. Once the parents understood that these were past life memories, their first instinct was still to help their child get over these experiences. They consistently reassured him that the drowning wasn't real, that it was just a bad dream, that he was safe now. Within months of this well-intentioned but spiritually misguided approach, the nightmares faded, and the boy's access to those soul memories disappeared entirely. This transformation from vivid recall to complete amnesia typically happens right around that crucial 7-year threshold that Cayce identified in his readings. It's during these formative years that our natural spiritual awareness gets systematically replaced by rational adult explanations. The child learns that certain experiences aren't acceptable to discuss, that some memories don't align with consensus reality, and that fitting in requires suppressing these deeper truths about their spiritual identity. What's fascinating about this process is how it represents a complete reversal of our natural spiritual abilities. We're born with relatively open access to soul memory, but through years of conditioning and social pressure to conform to materialistic worldviews, we gradually lose touch with these broader aspects of our identity. The journey from spiritual awareness to spiritual amnesia becomes a predictable developmental pattern rather than a natural evolutionary process. Now, I want to explore something that reveals the true genius behind this forgetting mechanism, the discovery that while specific memories fade, the essential lessons and wisdom from our past experiences remain accessible in ways that actually serve our current growth more effectively than detailed recall ever could. Write in the comments, "I had dreams like this," if you remember having vivid recurring dreams as a child that felt more real than regular dreams. The true genius behind this spiritual amnesia becomes clear when you understand that forgetting isn't a complete erasure of our past experiences. It's actually a highly selective process, designed with remarkable precision. Your soul doesn't randomly dump all past life information into some cosmic trash bin. Instead, it makes incredibly sophisticated decisions about what to retain and what to temporarily set aside for your current incarnation. Here's what makes this process so brilliantly designed. While specific details about who you were, where you lived, and what happened to you in previous lifetimes fade from conscious memory, the essential lessons you learned, the talents you developed, and the emotional patterns you've cultivated remain completely accessible. It's like having a perfectly curated library where all the wisdom is preserved while the unnecessary details are archived away. Think about this for a moment using a simple but powerful analogy. Imagine if every morning when you woke up, you could remember every single test you took in previous grades, every embarrassment you experienced in elementary school, every failure from your teenage years, every awkward social interaction from your past. The sheer volume of detailed memories would be absolutely overwhelming. You'd spend so much mental energy processing old experiences that you'd have little capacity left for learning new material or embracing fresh opportunities in your current situation. This is exactly what would happen if we carried full conscious access to all our past life experiences. The weight of accumulated memories from multiple lifetimes would create such psychological overwhelm that forward progress would become nearly impossible. Instead of approaching each incarnation with optimism and curiosity, we'd be paralyzed by the detailed recall of past mistakes, traumas, and failures. But here's where the hidden truth about this forgetting mechanism reveals its profound wisdom. Your soul, working in collaboration with higher spiritual guidance, carefully selects which aspects of your past experiences will serve your current growth and which might actually hinder your progress. The forgetting isn't random. It's a conscious choice made by your higher self to create optimal conditions for continued evolution. The impact of this selective memory system extends far beyond simple psychological protection. It actually enables transformation in ways that complete recall never could. When you're not burdened by detailed memories of past relationship failures, you can approach new connections with genuine openness. When you don't consciously remember past career disappointments, you can pursue new opportunities with authentic enthusiasm. The forgetting creates space for fresh perspectives and innovative decisions. What remains accessible, however, are the deeper patterns that truly matter for your spiritual journey. That inexplicable fear of heights might stem from a past life-falling accident, but rather than remembering the specific details of that, in death, you carry forward the wisdom to be more cautious and grounded in this lifetime. That natural musical ability didn't appear randomly. It represents years of development in previous incarnations, but you get to experience the joy of rediscovering these talents without being limited by how you expressed them before. Now, I want to reveal something even more fascinating about how this selective memory system actually manifests in your physical body, creating what Cayce discovered to be living maps of your soul's journey across multiple lifetimes. Write in the comments, this explains so much, if you're beginning to see how this selective forgetting might actually be protecting and serving your growth in ways you never considered before. What Cayce discovered about this forgetting process reveals something truly extraordinary about the collaborative nature of spiritual evolution. This memory veil isn't something that just happens to us automatically. It's actually created through a sophisticated partnership between your higher self and spiritual guides who understand your soul's journey far better than your conscious mind ever could. Think of these spiritual guides as incredibly wise advisors who can see your entire soul's trajectory across multiple lifetimes. They understand which experiences from your past will genuinely serve your current growth and which memories might actually become obstacles to your progress. Working closely with your higher self, they carefully construct what Cayce called this veil of forgetfulness, not as a punishment or limitation, but as a precisely calibrated tool for optimal spiritual development. The genius behind this collaborative process lies in its ability to give you a fresh perspective on life while ensuring you still carry forward all the wisdom you've earned through previous experiences. It's like having expert editors curating your soul's library, making sure you have access to exactly the right information at exactly the right time, while temporarily setting aside details that might overwhelm or discourage your forward momentum. But here's where this spiritual mechanism becomes even more fascinating. The veil isn't designed to be a solid, impenetrable barrier. Instead, it's created with deliberate gaps, strategic openings that allow specific memories to surface precisely when you need them most for your spiritual growth and understanding. These aren't random cracks or accidental breaches in the system. They're carefully planned access points, timed and positioned by that same collaborative wisdom that created the veil in the first place. The impact of these deliberate gaps becomes evident when you start paying attention to those moments in your life when past life information seems to surface spontaneously. Maybe you're facing a particularly challenging decision and suddenly you have an inexplicable certainty about which path to choose. Perhaps you're dealing with a difficult relationship and you find yourself responding with unusual wisdom and patience that seems to come from somewhere deeper than your current life experience. These moments represent your spiritual support system in action, your higher self, and guides recognizing that you're ready for specific information and temporarily lifting portions of the memory veil to give you access to relevant soul wisdom. The timing is never random. These revelations always occur when you've reached a point in your spiritual development where you can integrate the information constructively rather than being overwhelmed by it. This journey of spiritual discovery is just the beginning of what's possible when you commit to understanding your soul's deeper purpose. Subscribe if you're ready to continue exploring these life-changing insights. What makes this process so remarkable is how it demonstrates the incredible intelligence and compassion built into our spiritual evolution, rather than leaving us to stumble through life completely disconnected from our broader identity. This system ensures we have access to our accumulated wisdom exactly when we're capable of using it for positive transformation. The journey becomes one of gradual awakening rather than sudden, potentially destabilizing revelation. Now, I want to explore the most tangible way these soul memories actually communicate with us in our daily lives, through something Cayce discovered that completely revolutionizes how we understand our physical bodies and their connection to our spiritual history. Write in the comments, "I've felt this guidance," if you've experienced those moments when wisdom or certainty seem to come from somewhere deeper than your conscious mind. The most remarkable discovery that emerged from Cayce's readings completely transforms how we understand the relationship between our spiritual history and our physical bodies. What he uncovered reveals that our bodies aren't just temporary vessels. For our souls, they're actually living libraries, sophisticated storage systems that carry detailed records of our past life experiences in ways that most people never recognize or understand. This revelation changes everything about how we interpret those unexplained physical conditions, mysterious birthmarks, and chronic ailments that seem to have no clear medical cause. According to Cayce's readings, these aren't random genetic quirks or unfortunate accidents of biology. They're actually precise memory markers, physical imprints left by significant experiences from previous incarnations. One of the most compelling cases that demonstrates this phenomenon comes from reading 2886, which involved a woman who had carried a distinctive birthmark below her left breast her entire life. Like most people with unusual birthmarks, she had always wondered about its origin, perhaps assuming it was simply a random genetic occurrence with no particular meaning or significance. When Cayce conducted her life reading, the hidden truth behind this birthmark emerged with startling clarity. That mark wasn't random at all. It was positioned at the exact location where she had been stabbed to death in a previous incarnation. Her soul had literally carried the memory of that traumatic wound into her current physical body, creating a permanent record of that past life experience. But what makes this case even more extraordinary is the discovery that her husband, in that same previous lifetime, had also incarnated into this life, and he too carried a corresponding physical mark on his body. The two souls had been murdered together, and both had chosen to bring forward physical reminders of that shared trauma into their current incarnation. The impact of this revelation goes far beyond just understanding individual birthmarks. It demonstrates how souls often work together across lifetimes, even carrying shared memories in their physical bodies. This collaborative aspect of soul memory storage reveals something profound about the intelligence behind our spiritual journey. These physical markers aren't punishments or curses from past mistakes. They're actually carefully chosen reminders, selected by our souls as tools for recognition, healing, and continued growth. The woman's birthmark served as a bridge between her past and present experiences, helping her understand patterns in her current relationships and providing context for fears or attractions that might otherwise seem completely irrational. What's fascinating about this discovery is how it reframes every unexplained physical condition as a potential doorway to deeper self-understanding. That chronic pain you can't explain, that birthmark you've always wondered about, that inexplicable physical sensitivity you've carried since childhood, these might all be your soul's way of maintaining connection to important experiences from your spiritual history. Now, I want to explore how this physical memory storage system extends beyond birthmarks to encompass chronic ailments and health conditions. revealing why traditional medical approaches sometimes fall short of providing complete healing, and how understanding past life origins can unlock transformational recovery. Write in the comments, "I have unexplained marks," if you've always wondered about birthmarks or physical conditions that doctors couldn't fully explain. This discovery about physical memory storage extends far beyond birthmarks and into the realm of chronic health conditions that often baffle medical professionals. What Cayce's readings revealed is that persistent physical ailments, the kind that seem to resist conventional treatment or appear without clear medical cause, frequently stem from past life injuries or traumas that your soul is still actively processing. Think about that chronic lower back pain that started without any obvious injury, or those recurring headaches that don't respond to typical treatments. According to Cayce's findings, these conditions might not be originating from your current lifetime at all. Instead, they could be your soul's way of working through unresolved physical trauma from previous incarnations, using your present body as a healing laboratory for experiences that were never fully processed. The transformation in understanding this brings to healthcare decisions is profound. Rather than viewing these mysterious ailments as random misfortunes or genetic predispositions, we can recognize them as purposeful healing opportunities, chances for your soul to finally resolve traumas that have been carried forward across lifetimes. Your body becomes a partner in this healing process, not just a victim of unexplained suffering. What makes this revelation even more remarkable is the documented impact it had on actual healing outcomes in Cayce's work. Case after case emerged where simply understanding the past life origin of a physical problem led to complete healing in the present incarnation. When people grasped the spiritual context behind their ailments, when they understood the deeper purpose these conditions served in their soul's journey, something shifted at a fundamental level that allowed for recovery that had previously seemed impossible. This wasn't about magical thinking or denial of medical reality. These were real people with real conditions who experienced genuine physical healing when they addressed the spiritual roots of their ailments. The understanding created a bridge between their conscious minds and their soul's healing intelligence, allowing for resolution that purely physical treatments couldn't achieve alone. The hidden truth behind this healing process reveals something extraordinary about the collaborative nature of our spiritual and physical experience. Your soul isn't randomly inflicting suffering on your body. It's actually using physical experience as a pathway to complete unfinished healing from your broader spiritual history. Every persistent ache, every mysterious condition, every unexplained physical challenge becomes a potential doorway to deeper healing and spiritual integration. This completely reframes how we approach chronic health issues and those frustrating conditions that seem to resist all conventional treatment. Instead of feeling like victims of our bodies, we can begin to see ourselves as active participants in a sophisticated healing process that operates across multiple dimensions of our existence. Now, I want to reveal something even more fascinating about how past life information surfaces through our dream states and why Cayce considered our sleeping hours to be the most direct pathway to accessing these hidden soul memories. Write in the comments, "This explains my condition," if you've been dealing with persistent health issues that doctors haven't been able to fully explain or resolve. What Cayce discovered about the relationship between our dream states and soul memory access reveals perhaps the most accessible pathway we have to understanding our spiritual history. During those hours when we're sleeping, something remarkable happens that creates optimal conditions for past life information to surface. Our conscious mind, with all its rational filters and limiting beliefs, essentially steps aside and allows our soul memory to become active and accessible. Think about the profound transformation that occurs when you fall asleep. All those mental barriers you've constructed throughout your waking hours, all the conditioning that tells you certain experiences aren't possible or real, all the skepticism that keeps you locked into current life perspectives. These protective mechanisms temporarily dissolve. In this relaxed, receptive state, your soul has the opportunity to communicate directly with your conscious awareness through the language of dreams. This explains why some dreams feel fundamentally different from others, more vivid, more emotionally charged, more real than your waking life. These aren't ordinary dreams processing daily experiences or random neural firing. They're actually windows into your soul's memory bank, moments when past life experiences can surface with startling clarity and detail. When spiritual teachings resonate deeply, sharing that energy through a like helps this content find others ready for these same realizations. Your engagement guides these insights to people searching for exactly this understanding. One of the most compelling documented cases that demonstrates this phenomenon involved a woman who began experiencing incredibly vivid recurring dreams, where she found herself as a young man working as a scribe in ancient Egypt. These weren't vague, symbolic dreams filled with modern interpretations of ancient life. Instead, they were remarkably specific experiences where she could remember detailed hieroglyphs, architectural features of the temple where she worked, and even the texture of the papyrus beneath her hands. The impact of these dreams was so profound that she felt compelled to reach out to Cayce for a life reading, hoping to understand what these experiences might mean. What emerged from that reading transformed her entire understanding of her current life talents and interests. Cayce not only confirmed that she had indeed lived that Egyptian lifetime as a temple scribe, but he revealed how her current exceptional abilities with languages and her unexplained fascination with ancient history were direct carryovers from that incarnation. The hidden truth behind this case reveals something extraordinary about the precision and accuracy of soul memory. This wasn't wishful thinking or imagination running wild. This woman was accessing specific, verifiable information about skills and knowledge she had developed in a previous lifetime. Her soul had retained not just the general experience of being a scribe, but detailed memories of the actual work, the environment, and the expertise she had cultivated during that incarnation. What makes this discovery so significant for understanding our own spiritual journey is recognizing that these dream experiences aren't rare anomalies reserved for specially gifted individuals. According to Cayce's findings, all of us have the potential to access past life information through our dreams when the conditions are right and our souls determine we're ready for such revelations. Now, I want to explore something that makes these soul connections even more meaningful. The revelation that we don't randomly encounter strangers in our lives, but instead travel in what Cayce called soul groups, the same spiritual families choosing to incarnate together across multiple lifetimes. Write in the comments, "I've had dreams like this," if you've experienced dreams that felt more real than waking life, especially ones involving historical periods or places you've never visited. The discovery that transforms everything about how we understand human relationships comes from one of Cayce's most profound revelations. We don't just randomly stumble through life encountering strangers who happen to cross our paths. Instead, what he uncovered through thousands of readings reveals that we actually travel in what he called soul groups, the same spiritual families choosing to incarnate together lifetime after lifetime, deliberately selecting different roles and relationships to facilitate each other's growth and evolution. This completely reframes every significant relationship in your life. That person you met and felt an instant, inexplicable connection with wasn't a chance encounter. It was a reunion. The friend who seems to understand you without words, who knows what you're thinking before you say it, who feels more like family than some of your actual relatives. That's because you likely are spiritual family, souls who have been supporting each other's journeys across multiple incarnations. But here's where this revelation becomes even more fascinating and explains some of the more challenging dynamics in our lives. Even that family member you constantly clash with, despite genuinely trying to get along, or that person who triggers inexplicable reactions in you. These difficult relationships often represent some of the most important soul connections you have. These are souls you've agreed to work with across lifetimes, specifically to help each other learn lessons that couldn't be mastered in easier circumstances. The hidden truth behind these soul group dynamics reveals something remarkable about the intelligent design of spiritual evolution. Your soul doesn't just randomly select pleasant, easy relationships for each incarnation. Instead, working collaboratively with your spiritual family, you carefully choose which souls will play which roles in your upcoming lifetime based on what each of you needs to learn and heal. The impact of understanding this transforms how you approach every relationship challenge. That parent who seems impossible to please might be a soul who agreed to push you toward independence and self-confidence in this lifetime. That romantic partner who brings up all your deepest insecurities could be helping you develop the self-love you've been working on for multiple incarnations. The friend who challenges your beliefs and decisions might be serving as a catalyst for the personal growth your soul specifically requested. What makes this concept so powerful for personal transformation is recognizing that these relationship patterns aren't punishments or cosmic jokes. They're carefully orchestrated learning opportunities designed by the souls involved. Every challenging interaction becomes a chance to recognize old patterns, make different choices, and evolve beyond limitations you've been carrying across lifetimes. The journey of awakening to these soul connections often begins with paying attention to those moments of instant recognition. When you meet someone and immediately feel like you've known them forever, when conversation flows effortlessly with a stranger, when you feel inexplicably comfortable or safe with someone you just met, these are your soul recognizing a member of your spiritual family, even though your conscious mind can't access the specific memories of your shared history. Now I want to reveal something even more profound about how these soul group relationships actually create opportunities for healing ancient karmic patterns, and how understanding these connections can help you transform challenging relationships into powerful catalysts for spiritual growth. Write in the comments, "I recognize my soul family," if you've experienced those instant connections or challenging relationships that feel like they go deeper than your current life experiences. One of the most illuminating examples of how these soul group patterns actually play out comes from Cayce's reading 15,791, which involved a mother and daughter whose relationship was characterized by constant, inexplicable conflict. Despite both women genuinely wanting to get along and trying various approaches to improve their connection, they found themselves locked in patterns of competition and rivalry that seemed to emerge from nowhere and resist all their conscious efforts to change. When Cayce conducted their life reading, the hidden truth behind their current dynamic emerged with startling clarity. These two souls had been sisters in ancient Greece, where they had engaged in bitter competition over the same man. The rivalry that had developed between them in that lifetime was so intense and unresolved that it had literally carried forward into their current incarnation, manifesting as the inexplicable tension they experienced as mother and daughter. What makes this case so revealing is how it demonstrates the incredible persistence of unresolved emotional patterns across lifetimes. The specific details of the Greek incarnation had been forgotten. Neither woman consciously remembered being sisters or competing for love, but the emotional dynamics, the competitive energy, the underlying rivalry had been preserved and was actively playing out in their current relationship. The transformation that becomes possible once you understand these deeper connections is profound. Rather than continuing to struggle against mysterious relationship challenges that seem to have no logical origin, you can begin to recognize them as opportunities for conscious karmic healing. The mother and daughter in this case weren't doomed to repeat their ancient rivalry forever. They had actually chosen to incarnate together specifically to heal this pattern and transform their competitive energy into mutual support and understanding. This revelation completely reframes how we approach difficult relationships in our lives. Every person who triggers strong emotional reactions in you, every relationship that seems disproportionately challenging, every family dynamic that defies logical explanation becomes a potential doorway to understanding and healing ancient patterns that your soul is ready to resolve. The impact of conscious awareness on these karmic dynamics cannot be overstated. When you recognize that your challenging relationships aren't random misfortunes, but carefully chosen healing opportunities, your entire mindset around conflict shifts. Instead of feeling like a victim of difficult people, you can approach these interactions as a spiritual warrior, someone who came here specifically to master lessons that require these exact challenging circumstances. The journey toward conscious karmic healing begins with shifting your perspective from blame to curiosity. Rather than asking, "Why do they always treat me this way?" you can begin wondering, what pattern are we working on together? Instead of trying to change the other person, you can focus on recognizing your own part in the dynamic and making different choices that break the ancient cycle. Now, I want to explore the most practical aspect of this entire revelation: how Cayce recommended that we safely access past life information when we're ready for it, and why timing is absolutely crucial in this process of spiritual awakening and self-discovery. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to heal old patterns," if you're beginning to see your challenging relationships as opportunities for spiritual growth rather than obstacles to your happiness. The question of when and how to safely access past life information brings us to one of Cayce's most important teachings about spiritual development and personal readiness. What he discovered through decades of giving life readings is that past life memories should only surface when we've developed sufficient spiritual maturity to handle them constructively, rather than allowing them to become sources of psychological overwhelm or ego inflation. This principle of spiritual readiness isn't about being perfect or having achieved some advanced level of enlightenment. Instead, it's about developing the emotional stability and wisdom necessary to use past life information for genuine growth rather than getting lost in drama, fantasy, or self-aggrandizement. The transformation that occurs when you approach spiritual information from a place of maturity versus curiosity or entertainment creates completely different outcomes in your personal development. Cayce often illustrated this crucial distinction with what we might call his cherry tree wisdom test. He would frequently remind people that simply remembering you once lived and died under a cherry tree in your grandmother's garden doesn't make you a better person in this lifetime. That kind of detailed recall, while potentially fascinating, serves no constructive purpose for your current spiritual growth and might actually distract you from the real work you came here to accomplish. However, remembering that in a previous life you spoke unkindly to someone and suffered consequences because of that choice, that memory can teach you to choose kindness and compassion in the present moment. This type of past life awareness directly serves your spiritual evolution because it provides practical wisdom you can apply to current decisions and relationships. The hidden truth behind this distinction reveals something profound about the purpose of spiritual knowledge. In general, information about your soul's journey isn't meant to entertain you or make you feel special. It's designed to help you make better choices right now, in this lifetime, with the people and circumstances currently in your life. The impact of understanding this difference completely transforms how you approach any spiritual information that comes your way. What makes Cayce's approach so practical and grounded is his emphasis on spiritual discernment, the ability to recognize whether information is genuinely helpful for your growth or simply feeding your ego's desire to feel important or different. Many people become fascinated with the idea that they might have been famous historical figures or played significant roles in past civilizations, but this kind of focus often leads away from humble service and genuine spiritual development. The journey towards spiritual maturity involves developing the wisdom to distinguish between information that serves your highest good and details that might actually hinder your progress. This discernment becomes especially important as you begin to access more spiritual awareness, because the ego can easily co-opt these experiences and turn them into sources of pride or superiority rather than humility and service. Now, I want to explore the specific method Cayce recommended for safely accessing past life information when you've reached sufficient spiritual maturity, and how this approach protects you from the potential pitfalls of forced or premature spiritual experiences, while ensuring you receive exactly the guidance you need. Write in the comments, "I'm spiritually ready," if you feel you've developed enough wisdom and maturity to handle deeper spiritual truths about your soul's journey in ways that would serve your growth rather than your ego. The wisdom behind Cayce's approach to accessing past life information reveals something extraordinary about the intelligence that governs spiritual revelation. Every life reading he conducted came with a crucial caveat that demonstrates this divine timing perfectly. Only such information as would be helpful to the entity at this time would be given. This wasn't an arbitrary limitation imposed by Cayce himself, but rather evidence of a sophisticated spiritual guidance system that carefully monitors what each soul is ready to receive and integrate constructively. Think about the profound implications of this filtering mechanism. Your spiritual guides and higher self are constantly evaluating your emotional state, your current life circumstances, and your capacity for handling deeper truths about your soul's journey. They understand that receiving too much information too quickly, or the wrong type of information at the wrong time, could actually hinder your progress rather than accelerate it. This divine intelligence in timing explains why some people seem to naturally access past life memories, while others struggle to connect with any spiritual information about their history. It's not about being more or less spiritually gifted. It's about being at the right point in your development where such revelations will serve your highest good rather than create confusion, overwhelm, or spiritual pride. The transformation that occurs when you understand this timing aspect completely shifts how you approach your spiritual journey. Instead of forcing experiences or feeling frustrated by lack of dramatic revelations, you can trust that the right information will surface precisely when you're equipped to use it constructively. This removes the pressure to have spectacular spiritual experiences and allows you to focus on genuine growth and service. When people were ready for safe access to past life information, Cayce recommended a specific method that combines meditation with prayer for spiritual guidance. These weren't casual suggestions, but precise instructions developed through years of working with thousands of individuals seeking deeper spiritual understanding. The method he outlined is still actively used today at the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach, demonstrating its enduring effectiveness and safety. The process begins with entering a meditative state, but not just any form of meditation. Cayce emphasized the importance of first asking for protection and guidance from the highest spiritual sources available to you. This preliminary step isn't just spiritual protocol, it's a crucial safeguard that ensures you're accessing information from trustworthy sources rather than opening yourself to potentially confusing or misleading influences. The impact of this protective approach cannot be overstated. Rather than attempting to force past life memories to surface through sheer willpower or intense concentration, this method creates a receptive space where your soul can safely share whatever information would genuinely serve your current growth. The humility inherent in asking for guidance rather than demanding revelation demonstrates the spiritual maturity necessary for constructive spiritual experiences. Now, I want to explore something that reveals why some souls seem to have natural access to past life memories, while others appear completely disconnected from their spiritual history, and how this difference actually reflects where each soul is in their individual journey of evolution across multiple incarnations. Write in the comments, "I trust divine timing," if you're beginning to understand how spiritual information comes to us exactly when we're ready to use it constructively, rather than when we simply want it. The protection and guidance protocol that Cayce outlined isn't just spiritual ceremony, it's a practical safeguard that creates optimal conditions for receiving authentic spiritual information, while filtering out potentially confusing or misleading influences. When you enter a meditative state and consciously ask for protection and guidance from the highest spiritual sources available to you, you're essentially establishing a direct connection with your spiritual support team rather than randomly opening yourself to whatever energies might be present. This preliminary step transforms the entire experience from a potentially risky spiritual experiment into a collaborative journey with your guides and higher self. The intention behind asking for protection isn't fear-based. It's recognition that accessing deeper spiritual information requires the same wisdom and discernment you would use in any important life decision. You wouldn't make major choices without consulting trusted advisors, and approaching past life information with the same thoughtful preparation ensures you receive guidance that genuinely serves your highest good. The most crucial aspect of Cayce's recommended approach involves a fundamental shift in mindset that completely changes how spiritual information flows to you. Instead of trying to force memories to surface through intense concentration or willpower, the method emphasizes simply holding the intention to understand your current life challenges from a soul perspective. This subtle but profound difference creates space for authentic revelation rather than manufactured experiences that might satisfy your curiosity but provide little genuine insight. The transformation that occurs when you approach spiritual exploration with this receptive intention rather than demanding specific results is remarkable. When you're not straining to produce dramatic visions or forcing particular outcomes, your consciousness becomes naturally aligned with whatever information would truly help you navigate your present circumstances with greater wisdom and compassion. The pressure to have spectacular spiritual experiences dissolves, replaced by genuine openness to whatever guidance emerges. What makes this approach so effective is how it mirrors the divine intelligence that governs all spiritual revelation. Just as Cayce's readings revealed that information comes only as would be helpful at this time, holding the intention for soul-level understanding creates the perfect conditions for receiving exactly what you need when you need it. Trust becomes the foundation of the entire process. Trust that your spiritual guidance system knows better than your conscious mind what information would serve your growth. The impact of this trust-based approach extends far beyond occasional meditative insights. It begins to reshape how you interpret the synchronicities, dreams, and intuitive nudges that occur throughout your daily life. Rather than dismissing these experiences as coincidence or imagination, you start recognizing them as ongoing communication from your soul and guides, providing continuous guidance for your spiritual evolution. Now, I want to reveal something that explains why this entire process of past life memory access seems to come naturally to some people, while others feel completely disconnected from any spiritual information about their history, and how this difference actually reflects profound truths about where each soul is in their individual journey of evolution. Write in the comments, "I'm learning to trust," if you're beginning to understand how receptive intention creates better spiritual experiences than forcing or demanding specific outcomes. The mystery behind why some people seem to effortlessly access past life memories while others feel completely disconnected from any spiritual information about their history reveals something profound about the diversity of spiritual development among souls currently incarnating on Earth. What Cayce discovered through his readings is that the ability to consciously remember past lives directly correlates to how many lifetimes a soul has experienced and how much spiritual awareness they've developed through their evolutionary journey. This revelation completely transforms how we understand the apparent differences in spiritual abilities among people. That person who naturally gravitates toward meditation, who seems to intuitively understand complex spiritual concepts, who demonstrates wisdom that appears far beyond their chronological age. They might be what we could call an older soul, someone who has accumulated significant experience across multiple incarnations and developed the spiritual framework necessary to access deeper levels of consciousness. The impact of this understanding extends far beyond just explaining psychic abilities or spiritual interests. It reveals that souls exist at vastly different stages of development, similar to how students in a school system range from kindergarten through graduate-level studies. Each soul is working with the curriculum that's appropriate for their current level of spiritual education, and expecting everyone to have the same access to advanced spiritual information would be like expecting a first grader to understand calculus. Newer souls, those who haven't had many Earth incarnations, often have little conscious access to past life memories for profoundly wise reasons. They simply don't yet have the spiritual framework necessary to process such information constructively without becoming overwhelmed, confused, or spiritually prideful. Their current incarnation is focused on mastering more fundamental lessons about love, compassion, responsibility, and basic spiritual principles. What makes this revelation so important for understanding human relationships and social dynamics is recognizing that these differences in spiritual development aren't about superiority or inferiority. A newer soul isn't less valuable or less loved by the universe than an older soul. They're simply at a different stage of their eternal educational journey. The transformation that occurs when you understand this removes judgment from spiritual interactions and replaces it with compassion and patience. The hidden truth behind this soul age concept also explains why certain people show no interest whatsoever in spiritual studies, metaphysical concepts, or questions about life after death. For newer souls, these topics might feel irrelevant or even threatening because their consciousness is appropriately focused on mastering the lessons available through their current physical incarnation. Pushing advanced spiritual concepts on someone who isn't ready can actually interfere with their natural learning process. This spiritual development spectrum also illuminates why some individuals demonstrate remarkable wisdom and spiritual insight from very early ages, while others seem to struggle with basic concepts of empathy and ethical behavior well into adulthood. The capacity for spiritual understanding isn't primarily determined by education, intelligence, or current life experiences. It's largely influenced by the accumulated wisdom a soul has gathered across their entire incarnation history. Now, I want to explore something that makes this information incredibly practical for navigating your daily life: how to recognize clues about your own soul development and use present life experiences to understand your spiritual history without needing dramatic regression experiences or psychic readings. Write in the comments. This explains so much if you're beginning to understand how the diversity in spiritual interests and abilities among people reflects their different levels of soul development rather than random personality differences. More experienced souls, those who have developed wisdom through many lifetimes of spiritual education, naturally have greater access to their soul memories precisely because they've learned to use this information for continued growth rather than getting lost in spiritual drama or ego enhancement. These souls have developed the emotional maturity and spiritual discernment necessary to receive deeper truths about their journey without becoming attached to past personalities or achievements. The transformation that occurs when a soul reaches this level of development is remarkable. Rather than being overwhelmed by the weight of multiple lifetimes or becoming obsessed with who they might have been, experienced souls can access past life information with the same practical wisdom they apply to any useful knowledge. They understand that spiritual awareness is meant to serve their current mission, not feed their sense of specialness or superiority. What makes this revelation so empowering is the discovery that you don't need dramatic regression experiences or expensive psychic readings to understand your soul's history. Cayce revealed that we can use present life clues to recognize past life patterns and influences, making this wisdom accessible to anyone willing to observe their own experiences with curiosity and openness. The hidden truth about your current incarnation is that it's actually filled with subtle indicators of your spiritual history, if you know how to recognize them. Your unexplained talents often represent skills developed across multiple lifetimes, abilities that your soul has refined through years of practice in previous incarnations. That person who effortlessly picks up musical instruments, the child who demonstrates natural mathematical genius, the adult who has inexplicable healing abilities. These aren't random genetic gifts, but evidence of past life expertise. Your deepest fears frequently point toward past life traumas that your soul is still processing. The person who's terrified of water despite never having a drowning experience, someone with an inexplicable fear of certain historical periods or phobias that seem completely irrational given your current life circumstances. These emotional reactions often stem from traumatic endings in previous incarnations that left lasting impressions on your soul memory. Perhaps most revealing are your instant reactions to people you've just met. That immediate sense of trust or distrust, love at first sight experiences, or the stranger who instantly feels like family. These responses usually indicate soul recognition based on previous lifetime relationships. Your soul remembers these connections even when your conscious mind has no context for understanding why you feel so strongly about someone you barely know. The impact of learning to read these present life clues transforms your entire approach to self-understanding. Instead of feeling frustrated by mysterious aspects of your personality or unexplained patterns in your life, you can begin to see them as breadcrumbs leading back to your soul's broader story. Every quirk, every talent, every fear becomes a potential window into understanding the deeper purposes behind your current incarnation. Now, I want to reveal something truly extraordinary about how Cayce himself discovered the personal application of these teachings and how his own resistance to past life information ultimately led to profound revelations about his soul's journey and the karmic reasons behind his unique psychic abilities. Write in the comments, "I see the clues now," if you're beginning to recognize how your unexplained talents, fears, or instant reactions to people might be revealing information about your soul's history. The recognition of unexplained talents as past life carryovers opens up a completely new perspective on human potential and individual uniqueness. When you witness someone who can effortlessly master musical instruments without formal training, or a child who demonstrates intuitive understanding of complex mathematical concepts that typically require years of study, you're actually observing the manifestation of skills that have been developed and refined across multiple incarnations. These abilities don't emerge randomly from genetic lottery or environmental factors alone. Instead, they represent accumulated expertise that the soul has carefully cultivated through dedicated practice in previous lifetimes. The musician who can play any instrument by ear likely spent lifetimes developing that musical sensitivity. The person with natural healing abilities probably worked as a healer, physician, or spiritual practitioner in past incarnations, building knowledge and intuitive understanding that carries forward into their current expression. What makes this discovery so transformative is recognizing that these talents aren't accidents or special privileges. They're evidence of your soul's commitment to mastering certain skills through dedicated effort across multiple lifetimes. This understanding completely shifts how you approach your own abilities and those of others, replacing feelings of inadequacy or unfair advantage with appreciation for the soul's persistent dedication to growth and service. The flip side of this talent recognition involves understanding how your deepest, most irrational fears often point directly toward past life traumas that your soul is still processing. That person who experiences overwhelming terror around water despite never having a drowning experience isn't being illogical. Their soul carries vivid memories of a traumatic death by drowning in a previous incarnation, and that cellular memory creates genuine fear responses even when the conscious mind has no context for understanding them. Similarly, someone with inexplicable phobias of certain historical periods, specific types of buildings, or particular cultural practices might be responding to traumatic experiences from past lifetimes where they lived during those eras or encountered those circumstances. The fear isn't coming from their current life experience. It's emerging from unresolved trauma that the soul brought forward as part of its healing journey. The impact of understanding these fear patterns transforms how you approach personal therapy and emotional healing, rather than viewing irrational fears as psychological disorders that need to be medicated or endlessly analyzed. You can recognize them as your soul's way of processing experiences that require compassion, understanding, and gentle healing, rather than forced elimination. What's particularly powerful about this approach is how it removes shame and self-judgment from the healing process. When you understand that your unexplained anxieties or phobias stem from genuine traumatic experiences, just not from your current lifetime, you can approach them with the same compassion you would offer to someone dealing with any legitimate trauma response. Now, I want to explore how these soul recognition patterns extend beyond individual talents and fears to encompass the mysterious instant connections we feel with certain people, and what these immediate attractions or repulsions reveal about our shared spiritual history across multiple incarnations. Write in the comments, "My fears make sense now," if you're beginning to understand how your unexplained anxieties or phobias might actually be your soul's way of processing past life traumas rather than random psychological issues. The most compelling evidence for soul recognition comes through those mysterious instant reactions we have to people we've just met. That overwhelming feeling of love at first sight that defies logical explanation, the immediate sense of distrust toward someone who seems perfectly pleasant to everyone else, or meeting a complete stranger who somehow feels more like family than your actual relatives. These powerful reactions usually indicate soul recognition based on deep connections forged across multiple lifetimes. Your soul has a remarkable ability to recognize other souls it has shared significant experiences with, even when your conscious mind has no context for understanding these intense feelings. The recognition happens at a cellular level, triggering emotional responses that can feel completely disproportionate to your current interaction with that person. This isn't imagination or wishful thinking. It's your soul's memory system alerting you to someone who has played important roles in your spiritual journey. What makes this recognition phenomenon even more fascinating is how it extends beyond just people to encompass places, historical periods, and areas of knowledge that seem to call to you for no apparent reason. One of the most documented examples of this pattern comes from Cayce's reading 1152-11, which involved a woman whose entire life had been shaped by an inexplicable attraction to ancient Roman history and culture. From childhood, this woman had been magnetically drawn to anything related to the Roman Empire. She could speak Latin with surprising fluency. Despite minimal formal study, she felt profound emotional connections to Roman archaeological sites, and she possessed an intuitive understanding of Roman social customs and political structures that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than academic learning. Her passion for this historical period was so intense and specific that it puzzled everyone around her, including herself. When Cayce conducted her life reading, the hidden truth behind this mysterious attraction emerged with stunning clarity. Her fascination with Roman history wasn't random intellectual curiosity. It was soul memory, surfacing from multiple lifetimes she had spent as a teacher in the Roman Empire. Her natural ability to speak Latin, her intuitive grasp of Roman culture, and her deep emotional connection to that historical period all stemmed from lived experience in previous incarnations. The transformation that occurred when she understood this connection was profound. Rather than feeling like an eccentric person with unusual interests, she recognized her Roman period attraction as evidence of expertise and knowledge her soul had developed through years of dedicated service as an educator in that civilization. Her current life talents and interests suddenly made perfect sense as carryovers from previous incarnations where she had mastered these areas of knowledge. The impact of this discovery extends far beyond just understanding individual quirks or interests. It reveals that our deepest passions, our unexplained knowledge areas, and our mysterious attractions to certain cultures, time periods, or subjects often represent soul memories trying to reconnect us with expertise and wisdom we've developed across multiple lifetimes. Now, I want to explore something that makes these soul memory discoveries incredibly practical for your current life decisions. How recognizing these patterns can help you identify your natural gifts and life purpose by understanding what skills and knowledge your soul has been developing across its eternal journey. Write in the comments, I recognize these attractions. If you've always felt mysteriously drawn to specific historical periods, cultures, or areas of knowledge that seem to call to you for no logical reason. This understanding of soul recognition and past life carryovers leads us to one of the most transformative revelations from Cayce's work. The discovery that every challenge you face, every relationship that triggers intense emotions, and every situation that pushes you beyond your comfort zone represents experiences your soul deliberately chose before incarnating. These aren't random misfortunes or cosmic accidents, but carefully selected opportunities for specific spiritual development that your soul recognized as necessary for continued growth. Think about the profound shift in perspective this creates. Instead of viewing life's difficulties as evidence that you're unlucky, cursed, or somehow being punished by the universe, you can begin to recognize every challenging circumstance as a classroom your soul specifically enrolled in. That difficult relationship with your parent, the health challenge you're navigating, the career obstacles that keep appearing, according to Cayce's readings, these represent precisely the experiences your soul determined would provide optimal conditions for mastering lessons you've been working on across multiple lifetimes. The transformation from victim consciousness to purposeful participation in your spiritual education changes everything about how you approach life's inevitable challenges. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you can begin wondering, "What is this here to teach me?" This shift doesn't minimize the real difficulty of painful experiences, but it provides a framework for finding meaning and growth opportunities within even the most challenging circumstances. One of the most compelling examples of this karmic learning process comes from a documented case in the Cayce archives involving a man who suffered from severe arthritis that doctors couldn't explain or treat effectively. The pain was constant, debilitating, and seemed to have no clear medical cause. When traditional treatments failed to provide relief, he sought a life reading from Cayce, hoping to understand the deeper spiritual roots of his condition. What emerged from that reading reveals the sophisticated justice and compassion built into our spiritual evolution. The man's current arthritis wasn't random biological breakdown. It was his soul's way of experiencing and understanding pain he had caused others in a previous incarnation where he had been a cruel taskmaster. In that lifetime, he had forced others to work in painful physical conditions, showing no compassion for their suffering or considering the impact of his decisions on their well-being. His current arthritis was providing him with direct, visceral understanding of the physical pain and limitation he had imposed on others, developing the empathy and compassion he had lacked in that previous lifetime. The condition wasn't punishment, it was education, a carefully designed learning experience that would help him develop qualities his soul recognized as essential for continued spiritual growth. The impact of understanding this karmic connection was remarkable. Rather than approaching his arthritis with bitterness, resentment, or self-pity, he was able to embrace it as a meaningful part of his spiritual journey. This shift in perspective didn't eliminate the physical pain, but it completely transformed his relationship with the condition and opened possibilities for healing that hadn't existed when he viewed himself as a victim of random misfortune. Now, I want to explore the most profound aspect of this entire teaching, the beautiful truth about why forgetting is actually an expression of divine love, and how this temporary amnesia allows us to approach each lifetime with the hope and enthusiasm necessary for continued spiritual evolution. Write in the comments, I'm ready to see my challenges differently, if you're beginning to understand how your life's difficulties might actually be opportunities for soul growth rather than random misfortunes. Understanding this karmic learning process brings us to perhaps the most beautiful revelation from Cayce's entire body of work, the discovery that this forgetting mechanism we've been exploring isn't a limitation or cosmic oversight, but actually represents one of the most profound expressions of divine love and wisdom imaginable. What Cayce revealed about our existence between lifetimes completely transforms how we understand the purpose behind spiritual amnesia. According to the readings, souls exist in a state of perfect memory and complete awareness during the periods between physical incarnations. From this expanded perspective, you can see all your past experiences with crystal clarity, understand the karmic patterns you've created across multiple lifetimes, and recognize with absolute precision the lessons you still need to learn. You have access to every mistake you've made, every relationship that ended badly, every trauma you've experienced, and every moment of suffering you've endured. From this state of total recall and spiritual understanding, your soul makes the conscious choice to temporarily forget specific details when entering a new incarnation. The forgetting isn't imposed upon you by some external force. It's a deliberate decision made by your own higher wisdom in collaboration with your spiritual guides, based on a clear understanding of what level of memory would serve your growth versus what might actually hinder your progress. The transformation in perspective this creates is extraordinary. Imagine if you began each new lifetime carrying the conscious weight of every death you'd experienced, every betrayal you'd suffered, every mistake you'd made across multiple incarnations. The accumulated emotional burden would be so overwhelming that you might be too paralyzed by fear, guilt, or despair to take the risks necessary for continued spiritual evolution. The divine intelligence behind this forgetting process ensures that you approach each lifetime with hope, enthusiasm, and the capacity for fresh perspectives that wouldn't be possible if you were constantly haunted by detailed memories of past failures and traumas. This temporary amnesia is actually an expression of cosmic compassion, protecting you from psychological overwhelm while still providing you with access to the wisdom you've earned. What makes this system even more remarkable is how it selectively preserves exactly what you need while temporarily setting aside what might overwhelm you. While specific memories of past lives are veiled, the wisdom you've gained, the love you've learned to express, and the spiritual insights you've developed remain completely accessible to your conscious mind. This explains why some people seem naturally wise beyond their years, why certain individuals demonstrate remarkable compassion despite having relatively easy lives, and why others possess intuitive understanding of spiritual principles that typically require years of study to develop. The impact of recognizing this selective retention system reveals that you're never truly starting from scratch in any incarnation. Your soul retains its accumulated wisdom while getting a fresh start to apply that knowledge in new circumstances, with new people, and through different challenges designed to further refine your spiritual development. As we reach the end of this exploration into Edgar Cayce's profound revelations about why our souls deliberately erase past life memories, I hope you can feel how this understanding transforms everything about your spiritual journey. This isn't just fascinating metaphysical theory, it's practical wisdom that can completely shift how you approach your relationships, your challenges, and your deepest sense of purpose in this lifetime. If you found value in these insights, if something within these teachings resonated with your soul's deeper knowing, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to this channel. The work we're doing here goes far beyond entertainment. We're exploring life-changing spiritual principles that can genuinely transform how you understand your existence and navigate your path of growth. The fact that you stayed with me through this entire journey tells me something important about your readiness for deeper spiritual understanding. There's something profound about choosing to invest nearly an hour exploring these concepts when you could have been doing anything else with your time. That choice itself suggests your soul is calling you toward greater awareness and wisdom. If you made it all the way to this moment, leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," because honestly, it probably was. The divine intelligence we've been discussing throughout this video has a way of guiding people to exactly the information they need when they're ready to receive it. And if you felt that connection, that sense of recognition, as we explored these teachings together, a like on this video helps me know these insights are reaching the people who need them most. It also helps this content find others who are on similar spiritual journeys, creating a community of souls committed to understanding their deeper purpose. There's a video right here that complements everything we've discovered today. It explores how to practically apply these insights about soul memory and karmic patterns to transform your current relationships and life circumstances. Click and continue with me over there, because your spiritual education is just beginning and the next layer of understanding is waiting for you.